So, again, aloha. Dear students from Business 470. This is Global Business Management, all right? So last week we were incorporating a little bit of the cultural diversity into our leadership, into our management. And I created a pretty cool video. I liked it. I didn't even know I was recording it. That's why it's all black. That's why it's all black. I thought it was not recording. Anyway, maybe we can check it very briefly. Okay, let's go as a reminder of first week, okay? So, since I'm not going to point out names, because this is recording for liability purposes, please, can you remind us what we went over last week in class? One thing that you do remember.
Oh, it was
Anything we went over, you can pick, check your notes.
So there was all the differences in the political economics. Between the two countries.
Okay, so we're talking about globalization in different aspects, right? Globalization of markets and globalization of products. So the production side and globalization of a market, we are going to use the same strategy, okay, in every single country. That was the example of Starbucks, it's pretty similar, or McDonald's, or Burger King. Although, as I was commenting, they have always a little twist. Like here, the guava pie, or the lily, what it has called? Lily koi pie, right? In London, in the UK, they have a lot of dishes that are vegetarian. So they always try to customize a little bit, but Whopper is a Whopper, no matter where you go, correct? Okay, so that would be a globalization of markets, okay? And then we were talking about this globalization as well of the production, that it can be done in three different aspects. You have to take into account three different aspects, okay, of the diversity. Diversity in, let's see if you remember. We will go back into the video.
Diversity.
Let's check the video very briefly. Correct. So, this is it. Diversity of your own employees. But not only your own employees, it's like the whole staff. It can be your boss as well. It can be like other heads of the department, okay, where you are working, your own people, let's call it, your own staff. It can be a diverse group. And as well, your clients, your final consumers, all right, final clients. And another way that we were debating, okay, how to name that, I would say, who do you do operations with? Maybe you are renting a service, okay?
A trucking company?
Like a truck, yes, logistics, for instance. Or I don't have my own IT people, but I'm contracting. Another word that one of our students were saying, the contractors, all right? So who are you operating with? So, your own people, staff members. Number 2, your own clients, your final consumers. And 3, the operators. Who are you are you having contracts with? All right? These 3 groups can be very diverse. If you think about your own staff members now, and it was a little bit confusing, that's why I want to go back into this. Your own staff members can be in different countries. And within your own company here in the state of Hawaii, you can have staff members that are pure Japanese, first generation Japanese, or Filipinos, or second or third generation mixed potluck here in Hawaii. We have some Samoan, you have some Latinos. Go to Maui, go to the construction site of Maui as well. All the services here on the hotels. We have Korean as well. So you own within the headquarters, let's say, but they are like different branches of the same company, and maybe you have some people who are producing your stuff in other country. Are they considered part of your staff? Correct. And you are outsourcing, okay? It's not the same outsourcing than what you are operating with. When you are outsourcing certain, like the production side, for instance, those workers are your people. Take that into account, okay? And this is related to the case study about the stitching company. I wanted you to read, and today I'm gonna ask some questions here in class. Okay? Very, very interesting. Very good.
Competitive advantage?
This is part of module 1. We're going with the overview, right?
Uh-huh.
Globalization of markets and products, some types of like international institutions that deal with economy, and as well with different type of trades, of people, determinants of a culture. So we were going over that, right? The cultural diversity, 3 types of cultural diversity, and a cross-cultural business. What is culture and competitive advantage? What is that?
So isn't that like where both the sides understand each other's cultures to kind of adhere to make things better between them, and also to market?
Okay, that would be cross-culture business, but competitive advantage.
You
Do
have
you?
the upper hand.
Yes?
You have the upper hand. One company is they have the upper hand, meaning they're on top among its competitors.
Okay, this is an advantage. On top about their competitors, but do you remember the example about Airbus? That Airbus that is being assembled, like
you're
certain.
talking about how they're big, but they have different things that added from different countries, you talking about?
Okay, because it's like we're talking about clustering. What, like for instance, the cluster of tiles in Italy, they are like one of the number 1 in the world in tiles. You have like enormous regions where they only produce that, and they are the best at doing that. That would be their competitive advantage. And they are the best at doing that. And it's something that you want to take advantage of that. Okay? That would be an example. So that module 1 overview, module 2 overview, we are going to see, go over a national competitive advantage theory. And now we are going to go with the diamond of Porter's theory. I want as well to see the critique in this world, okay, especially in the last 20 years, last 15 years with the e-business, okay, the use of internet and social media that doesn't apply 100%. Critique to Chris Porter, and the international cross-culture leadership. So it is important to know the difference between like a typical manager and a leader. And a leader in a global company as well. That is like more complicated, okay? It will be culture specific. What approach do you want to get? Or culture universal. That's the overview. Okay. So Porters, who can tell me a little bit about Porters?
So it's got a diamond. Like, so there's 4 different things. And the
Okay.
diamonds are factor conditions, firm strategy, structure and rivalry, demand conditions, and related and supporting industries. That's the diamond. The Porter. I mean, it's called the Porter Diamond, but I know.
Let me see if I can find here. I am a very visual person.
Because it's meant to do the determining factors of national advantage. That's what they use for. Originally, I guess the overall thing was for that, to figure out if they had the national advantage or whatever.
Okay, the
Strategy.
competitive advantage.
Strategy, yeah.
Actually, it's like something that I read about diversity is not only to accept the differences, but to embrace them.
Mhm.
What are you the best? You are the best at, Americans are the best at shows, right? Shows. Nowadays, Chinese are getting very, very good as well at producing shows and big. So we want to contract or take advantage of that, not minimize the way we are doing that. All right, or like the typical Japanese. And now I'm relating this concept as well with the 7 dimensions of hostess. I really like your post that you were using, the 7 dimensions of hostess. Okay, let's see if we find.
You want the diamond shape?
Yes, I'm looking for
It's in module 2, 1 of 5, national competitive advantage theory.
Yeah.
You see
Give me 1
you see
second.
the whole diamond.
Yes, but
One is the players.
okay, let me see.
It says in module 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Mhm. So. Absolute advantage. So we are not into that. Yes.
There it is.
Here we are as well. Okay? So please, can you read what are like these main 4 factors?
So you got factor, endowment, determination, condition, relations and support industry, and firm strategy, structure, and
River clear. Yeah. So, like the demand conditions, that would be number 1, right? Yes or not?
Would it be factor? No.
it depends. Or like factor endowment.
Yeah.
Yes, one of the factors of Porter's.
I mean, but didn't you say where it would start at? Is that what you was asking?
No, I'm not
Oh,
asking
okay.
what it starts.
Okay.
Okay?
That's what you said.
It's
Yeah,
one of
that
them.
was the start.
You have the factor conditions. Where is it? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Factor conditions, the demand conditions. Number 2. All right? Then, like the industries, the related, the supporting industry. Number 3. And then for the factors, and then finally, we will go with the strategy that the firm is going to take as well, structure, and as well what your rivals are. What are you have to take that into account, correct? Okay. So. Please, can you read this slide?
The theory attempted to analyze the reason for a national success in a particular industry. Porter studied 100 industries in 10 countries.
Yeah.
Determinants of competitive advantage of a nation, which were based on four main attributes.
For major attributes, right? And that's actually what we were seeing on the diamond. The factors, endowments, like the demanding conditions, like those related industries and supporting industries, and then finally what is going to be the strategy that your company is going to take, as well as who your rivals are. Very good. We got like that. And then when all these factors are taken into account, that's when a company is successful, according to him. And something that I want you to see, and I like on this picture, is it does not start on one. So it's not like which one is the first, because all of them are interconnected, okay? As you see here, all of them are interconnected, all right? What is the factors and announcement, please?
So factor endowments, a nation's position and factors of production such as skilled labor or infrastructure necessary to compete in a given industry. Basic factor endowments and advanced factor endowments.
Okay, so basics. So we are talking about the natural resources. That will be the basic, right? Like for instance, we have the mines in Bolivia, or in Peru, in Latin America. They are producing a lot of mines. Or like natural resources of like the wood in Equatorial Guinea, in Africa, for instance, okay? So it's related to the geographic location and the climate. So that would be an initial advantage, but actually, nowadays and since many centuries, this is like not as important.
It depends on what country, because you got like Iran and Iraq, where oil is prevalent as part of their natural resources.
Correct, but in the global world, and it's like that's what I'm saying. Those basic endowments are very important for certain countries. But since the colonization, since the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, the power countries, okay, saying, okay, we cannot produce guns or much more advanced if we don't have the metal. For the metals, we need the mines, correct? But what it really, we are going to get like the more advanced endowment, what the value is the knowledge. The value is the people. Who plays that balance?
Who what?
Who was determined what factors are more valued or more important? The rich countries, of course.
Yeah,
You cannot have like the production without the mines. And the mines, where are those mines? Where are those natural resources? Where?
The cheap countries, the ones that they can overpower.
Yes, correct. Okay. Anyways, advanced factors. Please, can you continue?
Advanced factors are the result of investment by people, companies, government, and are more likely to lead to competitive advantage. If a country has no basic factors, it must invest in advanced factors.
And that what it happened, like how like during the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, number one country was the UK. The UK is like a country, a very small country that is an island and cannot have like many natural resources. So they were colonizing. And they were investing with the Industrial Revolution, and all started with the Industrial Revolution, into the people, into the knowledge, the know-how. And actually, this is the most important thing, the know-how nowadays, still nowadays. So that was my point. Okay? We need both. So, skilled labor, technology, invest on education, higher level education, very specific education. America is one of the number one countries, especially on very specialized type of education and PhD programs, for instance, and that's why it's still number one in the world. In business,
But what's
Still.
that change?
It is changing, and then we were talking about BRICS as well, the new emerging countries such as Brazil, what else? Russia,
China.
India?
India, okay, BRE, India, China.
Yeah, China, oh, they're already there though, but
Was there
Okay, so they're still there, but still the language, English is the language of science, and it's the language of business. And China is like coming up, but still there are a lot of people in China, millions and millions, who are not able to read. Okay, so there's like the world is changing, but still nowadays America is like number one in a specialized type of education and higher level of education, PhD level. And of course other countries like all the Nordic countries, but in size they are much more smaller, right? Like Finland or Sweden. Okay. Invest on technology. The demand conditions, please, can you read?
Demand creates capabilities, creates sophisticated and demanding consumers. Demand impacts quality and innovation.
Okay, innovation, important. So other related supporting industries, yeah,
Me?
yes.
Creates clusters of supporting industries that are internationally competitive, must also meet requirements of the other parts of the diamond.
Okay, when that's what I was saying about before, about the cluster.
Okay.
Italy is very good at doing that, okay? So we are good at producing tiles and we are going to export that to the world. How can we do that? Only if we get like, we team up. And there are like extensive regions in Italy that are only dedicated to produce the best cluster. Or if we think about Germany as well, think about all the area in München, okay, in Bayern, Baviera, right? That region is very good at producing like cars, high quality cars, very good at mechanics, very specific, and all those companies are going together. So that's a cluster. Like the strategy, like the structure of your company.
Long-term corporate vision is a determinant of success. Management, ideology, and structure of the firm can either help or hurt you.
Mhm.
Present of domestic rivalry improves a company's competitiveness.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's only one company, imagine before it was only Coca-Cola, maybe Coca-Cola could not like to only was like dealing with Coca-Cola, not with Fanta or other products, but it came Pepsi and other rivals into the scene. So they have to create new products and be more competitive. So this is something good as well. About the management, of course, long-term vision. So you have to have like the short-term goals, okay, from now into 3 months, for instance, or 6 months into up to 1 year. Long-term, it could be 5 years and longer. It's something very important to take into account. But when you are as well getting your company into the next step, let's say that I'm dealing only with the state of Hawaii, and I want to expand, and I'm going to go into other, within the nation, okay? Other markets like California, and why not West Coast? Let's go to Washington State and California. I might change my structure. Yeah? It can be linear or horizontal or vertical, depending. And of course, if I'm dealing with international markets, my strategy has to change most of the time. You cannot maintain the same type of structure if you are expanding. Something important to take into account. Okay, and I like this one. External, we gotta take into account what are like the, many times a lot of governmental laws, like do you know a country that is very, very hard to establish your company at in one country that is extremely hard because of the government. China, and even more than China.
Government is hard to.
Yeah, it's hard to establish your company there.
North Korea.
You ain't gonna get no companies there.
Cuba. Vamos a Cuba.
It's not easy to get a company.
Oh yeah, Cuba, they want to let McDonald's in.
No, Cuba, no, of course not. Cuba, North Korea, no. Talking about Japan.
Japan is?
Japan is so hard.
Is it?
It's so hard to actually establish your company in Japan because of the laws. They are very restrictive, super restrictive. Yeah. One thing is to export certain products, but if you want to actually establish your company there, it's not easy. Not even for enormous big companies. Like maybe like Disney. Disney has been able, but it took them decades to be able
It took
to
Disney
get there.
years just to get the one established in Japan. Just to even get the ground.
You talking about the Disney World place?
Yeah, the one that's in Japan, it took them years just to even get an extension to their property.
An extension to a property, yes, it's crazy. Okay, okay, guys. So I think we have overseen this part. That's the last slide. So. Please, can you read this side? What about Peters? What was Peters? Tom Peters saying?
Alright, Tom Peters on Porter's Diamonds and Demand Conditions. Consider Japanese success in TVs. The U.S. got the jump in television manufacturing, but Japanese demand took off and its home market became saturated first. Thus, Japanese firms undertook massive cost reduction efforts and added numerous new features to survive at home, and quickly surged to global leadership as a result.
Yeah.
They did actually though.
After World War
Okay. Instrument of trade policy. Okay. It's related to the strategy, to the structure of the company. Cross-cultural leadership. What is the difference, and without reading anything, between a manager and a leader?
Manager deals with the day-to-day operations, and a leader, they look like they deal with the vision and the mission of the company.
Do you agree?
Kinda.
Okay.
That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say that again. Okay.
I think a leader he instills things into people. He makes them want to, let's go do it. Manager is one of those guys that's like, oh, you messed up. You know what I mean?
Leaders inspire, managers manage.
Okay. Don't you think that I can be a leader? You can be a leader of your team's member, and you can be a leader within your own legal department.
Yeah.
It's the perspective, correct? Manager, they are very good managers, but they are not good leaders. They are like taking orders and very good at organizing certain things, but that's it. All right. Something I like about culture, and that's when in my notes, the ones I gave you, okay. Management is a process of handling complexity. So it's related to the goals, objectives. How are you going to organize it? Okay, and you deal with, as you were saying, specific goals, short-term goals, right? The leadership is like about inspiring, motivating the human capital so they can go towards like following the goal of the company. What is the motto of the company? Where are we gonna go on the long term? But at the same time, you can be a leader within your legal department. So this is like the change of mentality that we should have nowadays in this global market, and you as future managers, you have to be leaders as well. And leaders, you should have leaders in every department. You should have leaders not only on the top, or like the head president or vice president. Every supervisor should be a leader nowadays. Okay, it's a way of, and you have to, of course, not only tell what to do, you want to show the way you are doing things. So demonstrate, yeah.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking, of course. So there are different types of leadership styles, and we were dealing with that today as well on the discussion, right? Okay, role of situational elements. So take into account the cultural diversity. Why don't we check the discussion? Let's check the discussion. I really like your discussion. So when you are a leader, okay, you want to know if you are going to be supportive or you are going to be more directive. How are you going to create the participation of your workers? Are you actually taking into account the effort? Are you recognizing your workers? And the way you are going to do, the way you are going to communicate. Because this is something very important. What it works here in America, it might not work in Japan. Because education is different, right? I remember we were talking with some of my of the teachers of Korean, like at HBU. We have English Korean teachers of high school that come here to integrate and to improve their English and to see as well the way we educate in America, in the USA. So demanding, please, any doubt, active participation. Nobody had any doubt of the students, because did you know that if you are asking, you are raising your hand in public, you are putting like the authority of your sensei, of your teacher, into question? It's part of the culture. It's like, no, if you want to ask something, maybe it's better by email, maybe in a private meeting. So the way that we are doing things, please, do you have any questions? Raise your voice. I'm addressing you. I'm asking you to be participative. It doesn't work in other places. So that's why a leadership in a global market has to take that into account and try to adapt and educate as well the staff, okay? So that's why we are talking about between cultural specific and culture universal. Does it have to be contrary? No, it does not.